everyone. It's Dr. Patrick Cohn back with another webinar for the Fall 2011 series. I'm glad you can join us tonight. I might be unmuting some people. Notice that you can raise your hand, and then if you have a question as I'm going along, you can be able to jump in where we can unmute you. And I may, as I go along, unmute people, and we'll see how that works out. So tonight, you have two presenters again. You have Mr. J.J. Birden. He's a 9-year NFL veteran. He got drafted by the Cleveland Browns on injured reserve for a year, and then he played for them for a year and went to Kansas City, and then finished his career with the Atlanta Falcons. And most of you know me because you're members, obviously, of either Peak Sports Network or Kids Sports Psychology, and I want to thank you for being a member, and thank you for attending tonight. We have a very content-rich webinar to share with you tonight, so please stay tuned and get ready to fire off some questions for us. You can also put your questions in the question box. That should be activated as well, where you can input your questions within the question box as we get rolling. All right. I want to start by talking a little bit about confidence, and I'm going to have JJ go ahead and introduce his story about the walk-on. If you missed it last week, it's a really good story, and it really relates to confidence, certainly relates to confidence. I'm going to talk about two areas. Tonight we're going to talk about proactive confidence, but we also have to talk about the things that undermine confidence from a pregame perspective. I'd like to introduce JJ. I thank you very much, JJ, for being on the webinar again tonight. And could you just talk a little bit about what it's like being a track athlete and then going all of a sudden walking onto the football team, and how did that affect your confidence? Were there any doubts? How quickly did you gain that confidence, and what did you do to make that transition between track athlete to football?
Yeah, I sure would. Thanks for having me back. I enjoyed last week, and looking forward to share again. But yeah, being a track athlete, you know, it was. I had a really good career as a high schooler, as a football player in college. But I always had a desire to play football. Really more so because everyone said I was small and I couldn't do it, so you know, I wanted to prove everyone wrong. So for me, track and field was always easy. I was always faster than everyone. I could jump, and I worked really hard. So when you kind of put that combination together, you got a chance for success. The football element was interesting because being recruited from out of high school, all Division I college football programs said no, but you can run track. But I wanted to play football, so when I went to University of Oregon, they were kind enough to say, well, why don't you run track the first year, and we'll see if we can get you a walk-on. We'll see if you can walk on the next year. And so I patiently waited. I waited for the opportunity, and I used to watch the football practices secretly, and Rich Brooks finally approached me one day and said, well, you ready to walk on? I hear you want to give this a go. And I said, yes. And that's all I was looking for, was an opportunity. But I have to admit, when I first went out there, I was definitely a little concerned. I'm not the prototypical wide receiver. I was 153 pounds, 5'10", really small. So I was concerned as I saw these Division I athletes who were a lot bigger than me, a lot stronger than me. So I had some seeds of doubt. So what I really wanted to do, Doc, I just said, I got to get out there. I got to get out there and show them what I can do. I got to get out there and mix with the guys and see how I fit in. And as I started to kind of evolve and went from being the 14th string receiver to like number 2, I progressively started gaining more and more confidence because I realized that, you know, I could play with these guys. You know, I'm just as fast, and, you know, I'm not as big, but I really tried to be an overachiever, and being a little guy, I would take the extra hit. I would go across the middle. I wanted to do everything I could for the team to feel confident in me and also myself. But it was interesting because by the end of my college career, I felt that not only could I play Division I, then I started thinking, hey, I think I could play in the NFL. So my confidence definitely started to get to another level.
Yeah, great story. So in the beginning, there was some intrepidation. There were some doubts. Can I hang with these guys at 155 pounds? Can I go out and hang with these guys that are 300-pound defensive linemen? I mean, that's got to be intimidating for someone that's never really been in a full contact sport.
Yeah, it was very intimidating, and I can tell you when it was more intimidating when I played against Nebraska, and I was running across the middle, and I ran into a linebacker, and I stuck my arm up to block him. He stuck his arm up, and I ended up breaking my arm, and he went off to make the tackle. So I was definitely a little concerned with whether I was big enough to play at that level.
Wow. All right, and so today, it's a little bit off topic, but as we talked about last week, that nutrition is very important for athletes. And you've gotten, after your career, you've been able to successfully transition into being very successful with basically partnering with people on getting them on board with healthy alternatives. And in this case, particularly healthy chocolates. Could you talk for just a second about that? Because I know that's what you're doing today.
Absolutely, yeah. When I retired in '97, I dove right into the business world, and I owned a couple of different companies, medical-based and fitness equipment companies. But I'm once an athlete, always an athlete. I still work out, so I was always searching for a natural, clean, healthy food that would provide some health benefits. And I stumbled across some studies on the internet about the medicinal benefits of dark chocolate, and did more research and was introduced to Shasai Healthy Chocolate, and I like what I read. I read about it being a natural anti-inflammatory, helping with recovery and so forth. So I started taking the product, and it really worked. And 4.5 years later, I've been taking this every day, and I got to the point where I started representing the product because I felt it was a very good product that could help many different people worldwide because it's so high in antioxidants and flavonoids.
And I'm a user as well, and I've partnered with you, and you can go read more about it at this link at peaksports.com/healthy. /healthy at peaksports.com. If you want to partner with JJ and myself, go check it out. All right, so let's talk about what self-confidence is. I think there's some misconceptions out there about really what confidence is. And is it different than expectation? Is it the same thing as self-esteem? And the technical definition is how strongly you believe in your ability to execute a task. What that means is, when you're standing on a tee box and you're looking down the fairway, how strongly do you believe you're going to be able to hit that ball in the fairway? In JJ's case, it means, when you're lining up, how strongly do you believe you can run a successful route and get the ball? If it's in your area, you're able to come down with the ball. So it's simply very task specific on how strongly you think you can execute that task. You can kind of look at it from a 1 to 10 scale. I feel so strongly, 10 out of 10, that I can do that. Now, understand that it's not based on expectations, and I think athletes get expectations mixed up with confidence. They see expectation, well, if I expect to win, if I expect to perform well, doesn't that mean I'm confident? And the quick answer is no. Expectations are much different than confidence, and I like to pull those out for athletes and say, expectations are the demands that you place upon yourself, your performance, your statistics, your outcomes that really lead to pressure. If we strip away the expectations and we have the pure form of confidence, confidence does not have the expectation that I have to perform well or that I must perform well. And when I note this for athletes, sometimes it frees them up. It's like, oh, I get it. I've been putting a lot of expectation on myself, because the typical athlete that I see that comes and works with me has very high expectations but low confidence. And that's the recipe for disaster, because confidence will never get out of the tank when you price in the expectations so high. In addition, self-confidence is not the same as self-esteem. So let's make sure we're talking apples to apples, because self-confidence is very task-specific. It's related to how fast you think you can swim in the water, how well you think you can do that dance routine or that skating routine. Self-esteem, on the other hand, is about the person and the assessment or the judgment you make about your self-concept. So just keep that in mind, that self-confidence is not the same as how you see yourself as a person, what we call self-esteem, and it's not based on expectations. So if you have any questions on that, please let me know. Please put it in the panel, in the question box, and we'll get your question answered. And like I said, we're going to open this up for everybody to jump in there and ask some questions.